Did you know Hyperborea was the Mazzaroth wheel? Amanita Mushrooms apparently have a connection with Santa and Jesus. Plus the sacred secretion oil and the magical Anunaki genetic tree of Nimrod all connect into one mystery. If you like rabbit trails that produce more rabbit trails or mysterious encoded patterns, stick around. As you can see, Hyperborea is the Mazzaroth wheel, which we'll be getting into more soon. But it's on that as above, so below tip. So let's dig into the North Pole. Plenty of mysteries from hidden land to inner earth openings to Mount Meru. Check out the legends of heaven being associated with the North. Amongst many archetypal parallels, let's look at 2 Bible verses. So as you can see in this verse that Mount Zion, the city of God, is in the far north, and you see here in Satan's plan to ascend to the throne, you see it's on the far side of the north. So this connection with God in the north. Also relating to legends of the North Pole and why the legend of Santa exists at the North Pole. Let's check it out. The North Pole heaven is populated by elves, angels. Santa God arrival is ushered in by elves and trumpets being greeted by a multitude of singing praises to him. Santa Claus is coming to town, or the angels worshiping him. He sits on a sleigh throne and is accompanied by reindeer or cherubim and seraphim. He comes like a thief in the night, hands out presents, salvation, or damnation, coal, according to his list, the book of life or death. Also, there's no time in the North Pole. The hour of Santa or Jesus' coming is a mystery. Jesus is a carpenter and Santa is a toy carpenter. Both are omniscient, omnipresent, and everywhere and have an extended lifespan or eternal. Outside of time, knowing if we've been naughty or nice. And little children are encouraged to come to the throne of Santa, just like we're encouraged to come to the throne of God to ask for our needs. And both have the title Father. And you'll see how both Santa and Jesus have a tie-in with Amanita Mushrooms, and how some people think that's where they both came from, not probably knowing that they're related to each other. While this video is not about Santa or Christmas, you'll see them come up, and it's tied into interesting things. You'll also see this constant theme of original meaning and a hijacked meaning. The original Santa briefly was based off of Saint Nick, and has now been twisted to an occultic celebration. And even Nick is slang for the devil. And interestingly enough, Klaus ties into the sacred secretion oil, which you'll see right here, right now, in this picture. Funny how this is called Klaus, and this entire sacred secretion oil said to explain away Jesus with the 33 vertebrae, sacred oil that runs up the spine. Jesus is all just a metaphor for this. Which moves us right into astrotheology. Because apparently, all other schools of thought say that Jesus is just a ripoff of sun god worship based off of the Mazzaroth, which is the whole story in the stars put from the beginning in creation that was preemptively hijacked and manifested through various sun god attempts. But only one could ever solve, duplicate, and fulfill all the requirements for this code and be the Messiah. The true anointed champion of all, who was destined from the beginning. Anyway, with astrotheology, the whole thought is that on the winter solstice, on December 22nd, the sun goes down and reaches its lowest point and dies on the southern cross of the sky. It stays at this lowest degree for 3 days before it's reborn and resurrected and then starts to rise again. This creation reflecting the creator story that was all in the stars from the beginning is the idea. However, it's been attempted to be usurped from the angels that knew it since the beginning. And since it's all in the stars first, and the ancestors of Cain were the city builders, and now we're all in the cities where light pollution reigns and we can't see the original story in the stars to begin with, well. Also, I wonder if the sacred alchemy people and the astrotheology people have ever gotten together and wonder why the stars and the human body are all created to reflect the exact story of Jesus. What a coincidence. And speaking of sacred secretion and the tree of life, the spine, we're going to talk about the tree for a minute. It was all lost on the tree. We see the tree hijack with this Anunnaki magical tree of Nimrod, the genetic tree that connects to the other tree of life where they're doing all this manipulation. You see this weird Nimrod and Santa connection even when you're not looking for it. And even connections how Nimrod Bel is tied into rituals and sporting events we do regularly. But this tree pattern will tie into some other trees. Remember that for later. Also, on a side note, there's this whole idea of a hijack of holidays. During certain times of the Mazzaroth wheel, there are portals and openings in the sky. Sacred energy can be harvested, and they were meant to be original 7 feasts of God, yet you'll see that these have all been usurped and remixed to pagan holiday celebration that kind of all tie into Nimrod Baal worship, so that our sacred energy can be harvested during these portal openings. By the way, each of these holidays ties into one of the 7 deadly sins, like Thanksgiving and gluttony, or Christmas and greed, or Valentine's Day and lust, etc. What are you really letting in with these portals and these emotions? Also, on boss level theories, you'll see how this was originally Saturnalia and fertility, God, Nimrod, Baal worship. So Christ got thrown in there too with the sun god remixes. Just another god looped in with the winter solstice sun worship. Interesting how God's feasts were stolen and replaced, with pagan worshipping holidays all tied to a deadly sin, kind of like Disney princesses each being tied to a different disorder. Also, with the sun dying on the Southern Cross, you'll see that this is the final version of Jesus a lot of the elite want to have, which you'll see with the Jesus still on the crucifix, dead, as their final picture, not the resurrection as the final picture. Which brings us as we reach close into the Jesus PSYOP, the biggest conspiracy in the Matrix. reptilian cover-up of Jesus. What do most people think about modern church? How about recorded versions of Catholic Church history? Or hypocrites? Exactly, that's my point. None of that is Jesus, that's all man. These are all systems of corrupt men, which you should be opposed to because ironically, Jesus was opposed to them as well. Jesus did not condone any of that. He stood against the leaders. He stood against the system. He preached against the hypocrisy and leaders of the system. And who did he chill with? He chilled with sinners and the regular common man. What did he teach? He taught love, peace, forgiveness, joy, mercy. He taught rediscovering who we were made to be as God's ambassador of the God. An ambassador from a superior civilization, meant to do more than what we're doing down here. He taught holy living where we wouldn't hurt each other. But that's not what you think when you hear the name Jesus. Because the groupthink of the Matrix hates him, and you think what the PSYOP wants you to think when you hear Christian. Even the celebs in the industry are on the complete opposite SRA tip. That should show you everything right there. Of course the church has been infiltrated. Aside from the Bible saying it would happen, it'd be stupid for it not to be. If you were a wise genius like the devil, it'd be stupid for him not to use powerful things like the Word of God or systems like the Church of Men to manipulate people. Obviously it's happened, but that doesn't take away from the real, or the reason there's a PSYOP, or all of these patterns and connections. Think about it. If you look around and use your brain, you really shouldn't need all of the historical accounts, including non-Christian, Jewish, and Gentile accounts, as well as Chinese astrologers, Shangdi, and other interesting stuff we'll be getting in. Plus, in Japan, the symbol for 10 is a cross. It means heaven, and it's pronounced Jew. So people that are newer into their journey often say that stuff like Jesus is a copy. They just haven't looked hard enough. Or things like a Bible are just cherry-picked from other cultures. They just haven't looked into this and seen that either all cultures must be in on it, or it's the most genius cherry-picking of a congruent supernatural document that exceeds mathematical chance, or... And it's also not wrote in a way to convince anybody that it's real. It constantly criticizes its own people, their decisions, their leaders, exposes the sin of their leaders, and even a lot of weird things about God. Think about that. Your own conclusion is obviously always up to you. I hope I've given you some interesting things to consider. They have tried to explain away Jesus with astrotheology, sacred secretion, mushrooms, Santa Claus, Nimrod, sun worship ripoffs, and the list goes on and on. Now you've got to ask yourself why. Tying it all back together, what was all lost on the tree was gained back on the tree of the cross, and will bring us back to the tree of life in the end. And lots of things we see, including the Christmas tree, are a reminder of this whole story. And other things like the sun too. And the sun being reborn on the 25th is surely the reason for the phrase Christmas miracle. Speaking of Christmas miracle, I hope you get yours. See you next time.